Okay, so good news. Driving lessons, driving tests are back. Is it the right time? I don't know when ever would be a good time. I suppose is the first question. When would be a good time? It's good for me. Finally can get back to earning. It's been a long, tough sort of 3 months, and actually really looking forward to it. I enjoy my job, I really do. Some people don't enjoy going to work and have loved having the time off, and I have enjoyed the time off, but I need to get back to work. I need to start earning money again. There's a lot of people out there that need to learn to drive for work and getting out and being able to get to the shops and make life a lot easier. But driving lessons are going to look different, and driving tests are going to look very different to how they used to. So obviously for me, driving lessons, lots and lots of sanitation. So between each lesson, the car will be fully wiped down inside, all the touch points, all the places where anyone will touch. So after the lesson, and then before, once I've driven to the next lesson, and then before the next lesson, wipe down again. So you've got to think those touch points: steering wheel, handbrake, gear lever, door handle, door switches, outside door handle, seat adjuster, seat height adjuster, and that should be the majority of it, along with your interior mirror, exterior mirror buttons. All of those bits are going to need to be sanitised in between lessons. It's not a problem. Probably only take about 5 minutes each time. Don't be surprised your instructor might ask you to sanitise the car yourself. They may give you some disinfectant wipes or disinfectant spray and say, I'd like you just to go over it just to make sure so you're happy that it's done. And probably be greeted outside the car with the door handle, with a wipe for the door handle for you to wipe the door handle to get in, or with the door already open, maybe your instructor should open the door for you, to say, so that way you don't have to touch it. So then you don't have to touch anything on the outside of the car, you just have to touch the inside of the car. So the door will be open. It's one less thing to sanitise. One less thing for you to have to worry about. Could there be a possibility of anything on it? Face coverings. It's likely that a lot of driving instructors are going to go with a face covering being mandatory for the lessons. There is a lot of speculation as to whether they do anything or not. Now, I don't know, I'm no scientist. There has been no guidance for driving instructors from the DVSA as yet. Mind you, I'll probably say that and it will change. There's been no official guidance as to what we should be doing in car. There is no requirement for face coverings on lessons, so that might be a personal choice from the instructor there. Face shields, not a good idea in a car. We've got to think safety here. So if you are in an accident and your airbag goes off and you've got this solid plastic guard around your face, the airbag is going to push that plastic A, first of all into your face, and then B, into your neck and throat potentially. So you could really cause some real damage to yourself by wearing a face shield, and it doesn't help any more than a face mask does, or a face covering. Other than that, your lessons, the bits that might look a bit different is you may be asked to pull over, and then you might both get out of the car to discuss something where you may have discussed it sat in the car. Equally, if your instructor has to get involved and has to touch the steering wheel and then to move you out of the way, again, you're likely to be pulled over fairly shortly afterwards and then asked to hand gel and then steering wheel cleaned, just to make sure. And this is all going to take a little bit of getting used to. A lot of us haven't worked for a very long time, so, and this was never part of the practice before. Obviously we cleaned the car and we'd sanitise in between lessons as and when needed. but a lot of people weren't sanitised between every single student. There wouldn't have been disinfectant between every single student. The same way as when you went to the supermarket, you never would have had to sanitise your trolley handle. You'd have just picked it out of the line of trolleys and gone on shopping. You wouldn't have done it, we wouldn't have thought about it. But now everybody's thinking about everything all of the time as to where could germs and bacteria and viruses be, where could they be sitting, where could they be lurking. Now, I mentioned hand sanitizer. Again, that's going to be, you're going to be sanitising your hands before the start of the lesson. If you touch anything, if you end up somehow, like the instructor's hand touches yours as they go to correct you, you should be expecting as well, you should really, before you come out on your lesson, you should be washing your hands before you come out, so you're in a good sanitised place. You know, so we're in a good place to start. And then the rest of your driving lesson shouldn't look any different. Things shouldn't really take any longer for progression or anything like that. It's just going to feel a little bit different. The new normal, as they keep saying. Now, driving tests. The government and the DVSA have released a fairly long pack about what to expect and what's going to look different on driving lessons, driving tests rather. So obviously they've got a duty of care for their employees, which are the examiners. So the big things when you arrive at your test, the test times first of all might not be the ones that we're all used to. So examiners were doing 7 tests a day, started at 8:30 in the local test centre to me, and then went through the day. Now it's unlikely that they'll be doing 7 tests a day because they need to ensure social distancing. They need to allow extra time for the examiners for their PPE and other bits and pieces. It was quite a tight turnaround before. I imagine that's going to be a little different now, and I imagine there'll be less tests a day. We're being told that we aren't to arrive at test centres until 5 minutes before the driving test, and then you'll be greeted in the car park by the examiner. The examiner will then disinfect the side that your driving instructor sat. Your driving instructor will not be allowed to come with you, or if you're with mum and dad, mum or dad will not be allowed to come with you. They will have to wait at the test centre. The examiner will wear a face mask, and you will be expected to wear a face covering. They will advise you against wearing a face shield. If you're insistent, then it will carry on with you wearing it. But you have to wear a face mask. The examiner may wear gloves, and if you choose to wear gloves as well, they are to stay on. And again, same things we've heard before, don't touch your face, because if you're wearing gloves and then you're touching all these things that could be potentially carrying the virus if it was on there, and then you touch your face and you touch your eyes and you touch your mouth, well, you might as well not be wearing them, because you're not protecting yourself from anything. You may as well not wear them and then just clean your hands with sanitizer. But if you're going to be expected to wear a face covering at the very least. They will ask you about test and trace. They will use your information if you are to get in, to develop symptoms after your test. Test and trace, you should be using test and trace, and if the examiner was to develop the virus as well, they will use your information to contact you as well. I believe at this point, if you say I'm not going to participate in test and trace, your driving test will not go ahead. You have to agree to it, otherwise you can't have your test. Now there are people that don't want their information used a lot, and I understand that. You have to decide what you want more. If you don't want the driving test to go ahead, because then that's absolutely your choice. I would be expecting that you would lose your driving test fee for that. But you have that choice. Something else that is a little bit different. So before, if you failed your driving test at the very beginning and you had your reverse bay park manoeuvre in the driving test centre before you even drove out on the roads, and you failed because you couldn't get the car in the space, the examiner would carry on your test, carry on the 40 minutes, carry on driving out with you and drive you back to the test centre and then tell you you'd failed. What they're going to do now to minimise contact time Obviously, if someone has done something that results in what would be a fail, so either a serious or a dangerous fault, or an accumulation of driver faults, up to 16 driver faults, which would then result in a fail, you will then be directed back to the test centre, and your test will be finished early, and it will be explained. The test conditions will remain up until you get back to the test centre, but it will carry on in that way. Your test won't carry on in the way as it would do normally. It will be terminated early. The other thing, at the test centre, if your test centre has toilets and a waiting room, they will be closed. They are not going to be able to be used by your instructor or you. You'll only be allowed to use the toilet if you're pregnant or if you have a medical condition that requires you to need a disabled medical condition, or if you are pregnant. Now, it might seem a little harsh, and it's something that a lot of people, when they get nervous, need to go to the toilet. So you could find yourself potentially having to hold on for a while if you don't find somewhere to go on your way to the test centre. You just got to think again, if they let everybody in to do that all of the time, they're going to end up having to sanitise the toilets after every single use, and it's just something they haven't got the time for. The other thing to bear in mind as well at the moment is testing stopped on the 21st-ish, depending on the area and what was happening. 21st, 22nd, 23rd of March, testing stopped. So everybody that had a test booked between March and, I believe they had April, May and maybe the beginning of June in some places, tests booked, they've all been suspended. So they now have to be moved to July. So July testing is going to restart from the 22nd of July, and the people that will have those tests are the people that had their tests first booked originally, so those that were booked at the end of March. Now, it's going to take longer to clear that backlog because they aren't going to be doing as many tests, and again, not all test centres may be open, so it could take a while before someone that didn't have a test booked originally can get a test booked. So it's a difficult one. It is difficult, and there's going to be a backlog, and it's going to take a while to clear. So all of those people have got to get cleared first. So there are people saying, well, my test was rescheduled and I was supposed to be on the 25th of July, why has it been cancelled? Well, that's why, because you weren't first in the queue to start with. Equally, this gives us all a bit of time now we can restart. Gives us a bit of time to get everyone back up to speed, and things will have gone backwards. You've got to expect that. Yes, it's great that things are coming back, but if you've not driven for 3 months, you may have only been driving for a couple of months before that. So again, you've stopped driving for longer than you have been driving. So you're going to need to have some refreshers, and don't be surprised if things have gone back and maybe you can't do the roundabouts as confidently as you could before, or you can't do the parallel parking anymore because you've just forgotten. Things aren't you're not going to remember it as well. So you're going to have a few weeks at least, even if you were up to test standard and you had slipped a little bit, you can have a bit of time to get back up to par to where you want to be to take your test. Now, I think it's a really good thing. One of the things that we are going to struggle with is the distancing. So with the camera like this, you can see that there isn't much distance between me and whoever my passenger might be. And when that is me and another learner, when that is me and a learner, and you're sat here for 2 hours at a time, this is why this has not been allowed. We couldn't keep a 2 metre social distance, and we may have almost a metre between our heads, but it's going to be more like half a metre. But shoulder to shoulder, it's going to be, I don't know, 20-30 centimetres at max, and that's where the problems could lie. So this is why it's really important that we all play our part. We all do what we need to do. So any driving lesson should not be going ahead if you feel in any way you have any of the symptoms for COVID. So you shouldn't be taking a lesson if you've got a temperature, a continuous cough, that loss of taste and smell. The list of all of the symptoms are online to look for. If you've got them, you need to let your driving instructor know, and you need to not be taking your lesson, because it's quite a selfish way to look at it of like, well, I think I'm all right. Where if you have the symptoms, get yourself checked, get yourself a test, and you're fine. Well, you've only missed a week's worth of driving lesson. If you have it, and then you take your lesson, and then you take your test, your COVID test, and you had it. Okay, so now you've got to tell your driving instructor because you're in close proximity to them. If it's a few days later, they've then been in close proximity with another, maybe, it depends how long it takes you to take them and get your results back, could be another 10 people. And then all of those people and your driving instructor then have to isolate for 2 weeks. So then you're not going to get any more driving lessons. So for the sake of missing one, you've now lost all of them for at least 2 weeks. And then depending on if your driving instructor, if they got it, you could then be, you don't know, they could end up in hospital, they could be, we all know what the worst case scenario is with that. So we've all got to play our part. Any sort of signs and symptoms, we've just got to say, look, I'm going to get myself a test, and I'm not going to do it today. So don't forget, like and subscribe if you haven't done already. I'll talk to you all again soon.